Well, where I'm based, where I'm set up at the moment, I'm directly opposite a police station. To my left is actually a supermarket. Earlier on, I spoke to the owner of that supermarket, Nagarine Bravo, and asked her if she was concerned about whether or not her building, which is badly damaged by the earthquake, whether or not there was a risk that people might actually try and get in and loot. She said she didn't feel so. She felt that the area was quite safe, that the people who were living nearby were quite calm, and that wasn't a problem. Saying that, she does have armed guards with shotguns patrolling the perimeter, so she may say that, but of course she's still taking precautions.
We heard from a representative of Oxfam who said that they've got 25 to 30,000 litres of clean water to distribute, but it's a matter of coordination, and presumably that's a problem, because how do you coordinate with a government that's lost all of its infrastructure?
How do you coordinate not only with the government, but how do you coordinate with other NGOs? You have to bear in mind that this country has got the second highest number of NGOs in the world, and because of that, it means that to be able to fully make a plan in terms of getting to everybody and to providing the maximum aid available with the resources which they have, they need to talk to each other, and that's maybe where some of the problems are actually coming in. The situation on the ground, though, is that slowly but surely they're reaching more people, but it's only thousands a day, and you have to bear in mind that there are more than 1.5 million people, nearly 2 million people who really need that aid as soon as possible.
So the logistics and the bureaucracy are one problem. What about the terrain, and what about getting to some of the more remote parts of Haiti?
It's a real problem. What you've got to bear in mind is that we're right in the centre. We know that the epicenter wasn't far from here, but there are other places up in the mountains. We can look into a distance. If I look behind the police station, which I was telling you about, I can see mountains in the distance, and there are areas which we haven't even got to yet. There are areas where there is no chance of rescue teams even getting to for many, many days, and we probably won't know the death toll from those places until the work here probably is a little bit more advanced.
The Haitians say they're very grateful for all the help they're getting, but let's return to their own government. Why hasn't anybody from the government made any public address to their own people?
It's difficult. You've got to bear in mind that the president is based over where the airport is. You know, his presidential palace is gone. Many of the buildings which were key to the administration of the government are gone. Many of the people who would do the jobs are gone as well, having perished in the earthquake. When you bear that in mind, and when you think about the situation which the government was in before, that they were desperately trying to build real governance here in the country, it's understandable that it's been a hard slog to be able to get things moving again for the administration here.
Nick Davis in Port-au-Prince. For us, well, as you heard in those various reports, the lack of information, the logistical problems, as well as coordinating with the government, which has lost most of its infrastructure, are hampering all the relief efforts. Another problem appears to be violence, and even the threat of violence as well. And we have had reports throughout Sunday that some looters were fired upon by local Haitian police, and they killed at least one person. There are some 3,500 UN peacekeepers, 3,500 US troops, I should say, in Haiti already, helping UN peacekeepers and the local Haitian police to try to keep order. More international peacekeeping forces are due to arrive within the next few days to try to keep a lid on the security situation as desperate people try to get what they can as they await for international aid. Well, amid the devastation in Haiti, the most vulnerable victims can easily be forgotten. The elderly and infirm are particularly at risk. Just don't forget, you can get more on all our stories on our website. That's bbc.com, including, of course, more on the situation in Haiti. There's a full analysis and background, as well as information as to how you can make a donation to the earthquake appeal. Former US President Bill Clinton will be arriving in Port-au-Prince on Monday.
For some people, the relief isn't arriving. Desperation turns to violence. But many more Haitians, after losing everything, are showing remarkable patience.
Probably hadn't slept in 4 days, and when the sun goes down, it's totally dark, and they spend all night long wandering around, tripping over bodies, living and dead. I think they've behaved quite well.
Welcome. It has been almost exactly a week since a massive earthquake shook Haiti to its very foundations. Today, the suffering is still immense, and so is the effort to alleviate it. And there is still the occasional miracle. A woman was pulled alive from under the rubble near the destroyed cathedral in Port-au-Prince this afternoon, a full 7 days after she was buried there. Her name is Anna Zizi, and her son told reporters he never gave up praying for her rescue. As millions of Haitians continue to battle, sometimes literally, for the basics of life, for food, water and medical treatment, the US military's relief operation swung into a higher gear. US troops landed on the lawn of the country's shattered presidential palace, and relief supplies are now being dropped from the sky. The BBC's Matthew Price has been in Haiti since just after the quake struck. Today he lived the terror and the hope of everyday life with one young woman who went into labour in the wreckage of her home, far from help and at the end of her endurance. Here's his report.
7 long days now, and this is how they survive. In amongst the ruins of their homes, with little food or water, and with no one to help. And among them, Carlos Darius,
C'est ma femme, je crois avoir 3 enfants, une fille.
living here under a sheet with his wife and 3 children.
I was living down around down there. After that thing happened, we don't have any house. We're living on the sky.
Careful here. So too are plenty of others. Bonjour. We clambered over the roofs and the rubble and through someone's living room. Everything is destroyed here. Ah. Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour. Your house is here? This man's house is right behind you. In a garden, we came across Johnny Laporte, 25 years old, an English teacher.
No sob,
Who took us to the house his friend once lived in.
And he just came inside the house, you know, and go and hide himself into onto a bed with a baby.
He hid under the bed with the baby?
Yeah, and both of them, just to hide, and both of them died.
They led us among the ruins, where the dead still lie.
Yeah, only one way we can know that by the smelling.
It is now exactly 1 week since the earthquake hit. 1 week that they have been living like this. And throughout that time, what struck us is the sheer resilience of the people here. But they're starting from nothing, and they need everything. And standing here right now, it is impossible to see how, even with outside help, they can recover from this. We headed back down towards Carlos's shelter, and some good news. Drinking water. When was the last time you had water here?
Since the incident, that's the first day.
Yeah, first time?
Yeah. First time since the incident. Since last, today's make it 10 days since we got water.
But then it stopped flowing. When we got back to their camp, we found them clustered around Carlos's sister, Fabula.
She's pregnant.
Yeah? But how many months is she pregnant?
Probably 9 months.
She thinks she's having a birth?
Uh-huh.
They sang in prayer as they tried to get her to hospital, but she couldn't make it. For a week now, she has barely had any food, any water. So they lay Fabula down on the ground so she could give birth. Then she fainted. We told them she had to go to hospital. Our driver raced through the streets, past the rubble where they are still searching for the dead. And to the hospital where the doctors took her in. They placed her on a desk. Suddenly they wheeled her out and into an operating theatre. There were complications. She was too weak to give birth.
Make everything you can do for us, okay?
For half an hour they waited, as 2 more lives hung in the balance. And then good news.
He's a very healthy baby. They delivered right now.
A healthy baby boy and a mother recovering. 7 long, grueling days of hell and 1 moment of joy. Matthew Price, BBC News, Port-au-Prince.
A new baby beginning life in a shattered country, and you wonder just what his future holds. Over the past few days, one thing has become clear, and that's just how difficult it is to get relief supplies to those who need them most. The BBC's Christian Fraser travelled by road from Santo Domingo to Port-au-Prince today, and he joins us now to talk about the trip. Christian, as you were doing that drive from Santo Domingo, were there any signs of relief convoys coming in from the Dominican Republic?
Well, I have to say, actually, Caddy, I was very surprised at how little was moving on the road today. You expect in situations like this, given what we've heard about the chronic shortage of food and water over the last few days, that you would see long convoys of trucks making their way laboriously to the border. We didn't see any of that today. In fact, for large periods of time, we were driving on the road practically alone. And it's very surprising back in Santo Domingo to see how little at the moment is being done. And the only explanation we've had, and this came from the World Food Programme, is that after this initial flurry of aid that came in over the past 48, 72 hours, they're now slightly overloaded. Certainly the big agencies are overloaded, and they don't want to send more supplies down this humanitarian corridor from the neighbouring Dominican Republic until they can get the logistics in place to distribute it properly. But that's hugely frustrating for these local NGOs, the Haiti charities who have been out and see what needs to be done. They're hugely frustrated that the corporate donors, these big corporate companies who are now throwing supplies at this problem, they say, we've got to trust us, you've got to give us the food and the water that we need to go in and do this. We speak the language, we're mobile, we're small teams, we can do this. They're just not being given the opportunity to get on with it.
But Christian, explain a little bit about the geography, because you've done this drive now. I mean, looking back over the last week, with the port pretty much out of action and the airport overloaded, couldn't that have been a useful humanitarian corridor, a good way to bring supplies into Haiti?
Well, you would imagine that it would have to be, Catty. I mean, this airport is hobbled because it only has 1 runway. The port, not very far away, is shattered. So the intention must surely be to open up this humanitarian corridor with the right sort of security. And I think that is one of the big obstacles. We were talking to aid agencies in the airport at Santo Domingo yesterday. And the reason they've not traveled is, well, they were waiting for flights to come here, first of all. But secondly, they've heard all these reports about looting and people being stopped on the road. And I have to say, we didn't find it that menacing today, and I fear that it's been slightly overblown, this issue of security on the road. Of course, there are lots of desperate people who are lining up along the route waiting for this food to come in, but they've shown real resilience so far and a lot of patience. And I think really the excuse that security along the route is a reason not to bring it just really doesn't stand up, certainly not from what we've seen today. It's about a 10-hour journey, depending what's on the road, between 6 and 10 hours from Santo Domingo. And certainly the smaller aid agencies that we've spoken to today say they could be moving much more quickly the aid that is starting to come into Santo Domingo to try and get it here to the people that need it in Port-au-Prince.
Briefly, Christian, we've also heard stories of people trying to get out of Port-au-Prince as quickly as possible, assuming there is the fuel, and that's a big if. Did you see them trying to get out along that road to the Dominican Republic?
Well, you've hit the nail right on the head there, Caddy. The problem is fuel, and we are seeing people coming to the border, but nowhere near the sort of numbers you might expect. There are people who are trying to get there on motorbikes, 3 and 4 people to a motorbike. They've got jerry cans and suitcases on the handlebars trying to get across the border, desperate to get relatives medical help or to get to family that maybe live in the Dominican Republic. But here in Haiti, I've been speaking to people today who say at the gas station, which is just outside the airport, they have queues up to 1 kilometre long as people try and get the fuel for their vehicles to get out of here. But the problem is, of course, with so little fuel, the price is going up, and it's really only the people that can afford it that are getting the food and the water and the fuel that they need. So there's an awful lot of people. They estimate around 3 million people across Haiti still need help. They really do need to ramp up this aid operation in the next few days if they're going to do that.
OK, Christian Fraser now at the airport there in Port-au-Prince. Thanks so much for joining us with the latest there.